Yeah, it's Saturday Arvo. Where else would you like to be? Sitting around talking footy. Sharks and Rabbitohs kick off 3 o'clock this afternoon. You will hear it right here on Triple M. My name's Tony Squires, joined by Nathan Hindmarsh, Brent Read, and Jason Demetriou, of course, is in for Wade Graham, who currently is wearing chinos and RM Williams boots in Ipswich, Hindy, for the Country Music Festival up there.
Yeah, well, I'm not really into my country music yet. I did see
think
Garth
it's an age thing?
I saw Garth Brooks in Vegas, who was outstanding, because I've always wanted to see him.
Yeah.
But I'm slowly starting to get into Luke Combs and all that mob there, but I do own a pair of RMs, but that was only because I watched Yellowstone.
Of course.
And I got into a bit of. I also started drinking a bit of Scotch as well, or whiskey.
Oh, neat.
Just on the rocks, yeah. So I go out into my backyard and lean over the fence, the plastic fencing, and sip my Scotch or whiskey and look at my cows.
Wow. The plastic fencing. Did you erect the plastic fencing yourself?
Look at these hands.
Mm-hmm. I know
Soft
they go everywhere, don't
As my brother calls them, soft hands. What would you know, soft hands? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, they don't work.
Really good to see you.
Yeah, great to be here, Tone. I'm intrigued by that story. Do you have cows?
I have
Are you
cows.
serious? You have
Yes,
cows?
yeah.
Okay.
I've got miniature donkeys as well.
Miniature donkeys.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have a donkey like Mark Waugh has that actually comes into the house? And
They come.
wanders?
They have ventured into the house. Yeah. But they don't. They're not. They're like cats. Sometimes they want to know you. Sometimes they don't. More often they don't.
They're
wanna know.
aloof.
They are. Yeah, they are.
Snobs. The snobby donkeys.
They are snobby donkeys. Yeah.
That's the brand.
Yeah.
A couple of
Snobby
snobby
donkey.
donkeys. Thank you very much, JD. You must be thrilled to be back here.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I'm excited to be with this crew today.
It's so good to see you. Haven't seen you for a while. Obviously, the work you're doing here too. But I'm interested with the Westfield Sports Hire, the stuff that's going on there. How's that? You just begun that this year?
Yeah, just started out this year in getting to the back end of term 1 and, loving it, actually. It's good to get back coaching. You're coaching kids from anywhere from 12 to 18 years old and through their year groups, and their footy will start playing in the second term when the rep footy finishes. So, I'm actually really enjoying it, and it's good to get back and do some type of coaching where I can experiment a bit with different things and try things out that I've always wanted to do. But and the
Guinea pigs.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the kids have been unreal. To be fair, they're very well behaved, good group of kids. So it's been a good job.
Are these kids who've been drafted to the school because of their talent already?
Yeah, well, it's a rugby league school. It's a sports school.
Yeah.
So it's a rugby league program. Kids will trial to get into that program, and they come from all over the place. Some of them are travelling an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to school every day. So they love it. They love being there, and like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing some of them play.
Is it still a subject, rugby league?
It is.
I think they used to have it as a subject you picked.
Yeah, it was never when I was at school.
No,
I was
not me
finished
either.
school if it was there. But yeah,
3-unit rugby league I'm doing
Oh
this
yeah,
year.
I'd be 3-unit doing it at lunchtime and all that. Same as when I was doing 3-unit maths, I'd have to do it at lunchtime. Same as my biology and chemistry classes, always at lunchtime.
Yeah, physics
always,
and chemistry. Yeah.
Always at lunchtime. I didn't get it. I hated that because there was only about 3 or 4 of us in the class. So, but it was always done at lunchtime because there was no class with 4-unit maths and chemistry. So
I can't remember your story last year. I can't remember who the player was, and a player who went to Westfield's High, and he was he's a rugby league player, an NRL player now. He failed rugby league at school, failed the subject, which I find astonishing, right?
I could possibly do that, I reckon.
Yeah,
I've done quizzes. I've done quizzes on the show, and tell you what, there's a lot of failure going on with rugby league questions.
Well, you can see why a lot of them go to choose rugby league as a subject, though, because it's there's some tough going.
But how young these days? When you can identify that kind of skill level, this is somebody going to watch and push.
Yeah, that's part of the excitement of it. You're seeing kids and you're seeing things that they do naturally that you want them to progress in, and it's a challenge though, our game, because you get to that 15, 16, 17 years old where the physicality really comes into the game, and some kids will kick on through that and some will dip away from it, and often it's the guys who are bigger that find it harder as everybody starts catching up. So yeah, for me it's really good just to go into it trying to develop each individual within the school and building a relationship with them. There's not 200 plus kids in the program, so names have been the hardest part to get to know in the first term.
Don't you just use the Wayne Bennett method where whatever name you come up with, it's one they're stuck with?
Yeah, I can't come up with that many names, though.
Are they linked? Westfield's linked with a club? I can't remember, JD, or a variety of clubs send their kids to that school?
Yeah, no, there's a variety of clubs. Okay. Probably heavily influenced by Parramatta, West Tigers, Canterbury as well. I've got quite a few in there, but they spread out to Penrith. I think that's one of the things that the school's keen on, is not being affiliated with just one club, and being a school that's open to all kids coming from whatever club they're at.
Just to clarify, Heine, you never did chemistry, did you?
No.
Never did three or four.
No, I did MI, not MIP, which was maths in practice. I did MIS, maths in society, which was the one up.
Right, like, it's basically going to the shops.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. If I buy 5 apples, that's all I remember
it's
from
a
that
miracle
one.
because they usually steal them. All right, some of the results, obviously, the Broncos 26, the Cowboys 16. We'll get to that game shortly. Storm 30 over the Panthers 24. In the grand final rematch, and the Warriors 14, the Roosters 6. A bit of a dour game, but they got that job done, the Warriors, over the Roosters. All right, Reedy, what have we got to look at the charge sheet and injuries from those games thus far?
So there's a bit of carnage, obviously, out of Thursday night, the grand final rematch. The big ones were, obviously, Nathan Cleary, the concussion. He'll miss next week, at least a week.
What was going on there with Nathan Cleary? Looked like he suddenly hit a zero gravity area and just kind of floated through the air.
Yeah, well, I think he landed on his head, didn't he?
Yeah.
He looked in a bit of trouble, Nace. So he'll miss at least one game because the 11-day stand-down period. Jerome Hughes with a broken hand. He's out for 2 weeks. He's had surgery on that hand, at least 2 weeks. Nick Meaney, the fractured cheekbone, bit of friendly fire with Nelson Sofa Solomona.
Welcome back, big fella.
Yeah, he's looking at 4
Had a
to
great
6. And Nelson actually got delayed concussion after that game. He had concussion signs in the dressing room after the game, so he'll now miss a week as well.
That would just regret signs.
I know. And Nick Meaney and Ali Katoa and Grant Anderson had knee injuries, but they reckon they might be okay for next week. So Melbourne's got some issues there. And no charges out of the game. Out of the last night, the Roosters game, obviously, Roger went off with a hamstring problem. I believe he's got to have scans on that. But he looks as though he might be out for an extended period. And Reece Walsh got charged last night with a shoulder charge. I can't remember who it was on. I think it was when they...
Try scorer.
I think it was a Tuolagi. Yeah. He got charged with a shoulder charge, but he'll only get a fine for an early plea, so he should be right to play next week.
All right. What else do you do? I mean, you've been watching it through, obviously, as match review now as well, so you'll watch it through a different lens?
Yeah, definitely. So it's been a really good experience, actually, teaming up with the NRL and the match review committee and seeing how they go about looking at each and every game. And sitting in the bunker it's been a great experience. It's been really interesting to sit on that side of the fence, and from a coach's perspective, there's some good learnings out of it as well. So they're really enjoying it.
They're such hard ones, though, the Reece Walsh one. Like, what's a fullback? Yeah. It's really hard for a fullback in that position when he's racing across like that, trying to stop a try to actually perform a wrapping motion, I reckon. I don't know.
Can we change the rules if they are attempting to score a try to just
do what you want?
Obviously don't lead with your knees and your feet, that Billy Slater style. But I'm with you, Reedy, on that. Like, you got to stop him from scoring a try, and that was the easiest way for him to try and do that. And now he's going to get charged for trying to stop a try, or he's facing a fine. But there has to be, I think there's got to be a little bit more leniency in those situations where we're going in like that.
But has duty of care changed behind the try line in terms of worrying about the injury prospect?
I think for that instance, I think it can. I think it could.
I don't think he hit him in the head, though, do you, from memory?
Which is why it's probably a fine.
Fine.
Yeah, so it's one of those things. He's desperate. He's coming across at speed, and all those factors are taken into account, which is probably why he's got a fine. But it's a difficult one because at the end of the day, the game is protecting itself in terms of collisions with the head, and that's first and foremost at everyone's thought process through the NRL, and rightfully so, because we want to make sure that the game keeps going for another 100 years.
So for moving forward on that one, so if you do it and it doesn't lead to a contact of the head, can it be not fined or anything? Could you change it like that? So if you can go in there, you're trying to stop a try, you use your shoulders without the wrapping motion, but there's no contact with the head or anything like that.
Yeah, I think there's
could that just be wipe the slate clean there on that sort of stuff?
Yeah, there's different ones, isn't there? There's incidences where a winger's coming down the sideline, he's running at full pace, and you're coming across to try to make that tackle, and sometimes they'll step in and initiate the collision as well, and you end up almost protecting yourself. Whereas in this instance, the ball's dead on the ground, he's picking up a loose ball, so there's no real change in terms of what he's doing. He's just trying to stop the ball. So there's not always one rule for everyone. It just, that's a good thing about the match review committee. There's ex-players, coaches, referees that have different viewpoints on it, and we have that discussion. And like I said, I think, it would be harsh on Reece to miss a game for that. But at the same time, he's probably got to try to look to make an effort to get his hands on the ball like Murray Tuilagi was doing.
All right, we'll come back to you in terms of Cam Munster and the hip drop that wasn't as well. That's later. So much to get to in the few hours we have to share with you this afternoon right here on the Saturday Scrum, thanks to Thirsty Camel. Triple M rocking the footy on a Saturday afternoon. Tony Squires, Nathan Hindmarsh, Jason Demetriou and Brent Read with you. The Broncos 26, Cowboys 16 in the Queensland. We're calling it Derby or Derby. I'm going to go Derby. And they've won that. And one little result I wanted to get to you before we get to the game proper was Adam Reynolds. He now stands alone in third on the point scoring records in the history of the game. It's pretty phenomenal, isn't it? He's at, I think, 2,378 points. He went past Jason Croker. He's, of course, just behind Hazem El Masri, who's on 2,418. And, of course, the great Cam Smith, not sure, but he's going to get there to the 2,786. It's huge. But that is a fantastic record that man has just got.
Yeah, oh, definitely. You go.
Outstanding little wombat from Redfern that has been able to use those little legs to kick goals the way he does. But, yeah, he's had an outstanding career, Adam, hasn't he? So it's great to see him getting up the charts in the point scoring. And, he'll have his eyes on that, I'm sure. And that might be something that motivates him to keep playing.
Well, he didn't get the Man of the Match award. I think Payne Haas got that last night, but Adam Reynolds was in just about everything. Great kicking game, short kicking game, long kicking game. Him and Ben Hunt again controlling around there. It was a good performance from the Broncos. Yeah,
much better than last week, obviously. I think the Cowboys were really good in the opening 20 or so, really determined and hung in the contest, but the Broncos just had too much class in the end. I mean, Reynolds... you mentioned Reynolds' time, but Payne Haas was just immense for them, wasn't he? I mean, he is such a good footballer. And I mentioned it 2 weeks ago. He's going through Ramadan at the moment as well. So to do what he's doing at the moment is just astonishing, right? But, I mean, I still think Reynolds is a key for them. If they're going to win a comp this year, they need him fit come September. They can't win the comp. I know they've got Ben Hunt there now, but without Reynolds, I don't think they win the comp, Brisbane. I think that's their only hope. If he's fit, and he's fit come September, and Payne's playing like he is now, I think they're every chance.
Yeah, it's just, his kicking game.
It's unbelievable.
But it's his short kicking game, which I like to see.
So good,
he can just put it on a dime. He knows when to kick. He probably had one stuff up last night where I think they ruled 6 again, and he's kicked on the first and it's hit the post. But if it didn't hit the post, they were going to score
Cobbo
anyway.
Scores there, doesn't he?
Yeah. So, but he just because when he moved the move from South to Broncos, there was a lot of talk around will he get through his contract up there, like. We know he's had a few injuries and all that type of stuff, and you hear stories that he wasn't, the hardest trainer, all that sort of stuff. But he's regrown. He's like he's like risen from the ashes sort of thing, and he's playing some outstanding footy. But his kicking game's on song. But when you got players around him like Haas, who I thought was he's a freak. He's a freak, and Walsh too. Like Walsh had a bad night last night, but he kicked that 40-20, which led to a try. The Broncos aren't looking too bad.
They look good. The early kicks, because there was about 3 of them, and they scored off a couple. It doesn't scream that that's Madge making that decision. It's just those guys on the run, because kicking so early is not actually a usual technique.
To score, do you mean?
Yeah.
Short kicking game? Yeah. Well, I think I've said it before now with the way the game's refereed, the short kick is probably the best arsenal in your kit box, because if I put a short kick in and you escort me, there's a chance of a penalty try or a sin bin for you. As long as the ball doesn't go dead, the outcomes that you can get from your short kick are outstanding. A repeat set, try, 10 in the bin, penalty try. So, a lot of players will use it, but the fullbacks are in the line a lot now. So it's starting to really, and some of them positionally aren't the best. And Drinkwater a lot of times can get caught out. So I'm sure that's what Brisbane had in mind going into the game.
If you get a result, obviously it's a good kick. If they kick on a third, if you're in the coach's box and they kick on third or second tackle and don't get the result, are you peeved?
It's like anything. You throw that money ball and it doesn't nail, then we're going to have conversations about is that the right option. If you nail it, then we're going to say well done. But you want your players to back themselves as well. You want them, especially your best players. You don't want them going out there fearful of making a mistake. You want them backing their judgment, and they're elite players for a reason.
Is that the tricky thing though? Making sure that they don't get scared about making or doing things off the cuff.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. There's different ways. People coach differently, but I was never a player who went out there and worried about making mistakes, because that wouldn't make me play well. I'd have to go out there and be excited about what I can bring to the table. And and believe in what I do and how that works. And I try to put that through to the players. I want you to back yourself. And that's the hardest thing for young players that come into first grade is you see them in second grade killing it and then jump into first grade and there's like a deer in the headlights. And once you get there, being able to take the shackles off and play. And you see it all the time, don't you?
So what about someone like Reece Walsh, like last night? You know, he was rocks or diamonds last night, but he was trying. He was trying
for 2 weeks, hasn't he?
Yeah,
he was like that last week.
He was trying things though, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And some of them didn't come off, and then he'd get the shits at himself and give away a penalty. What do you say to someone like Reece Walsh after the game?
Yeah, well, for Reece, I'd be talking about his try line defence. I thought it was the best try line defence I've seen him do for a long time. You know, they really only conceded one try. The other one was from a kick, and I think it was 7-8 sets in a row in the first half where Broncos just kept turning him away. And a lot of that comes from the energy your fullback brings you on the try line and organising his numbers. And it's obviously clearly been a work on for Reece. So that's one of the things I'll be talking about that he did really well. And then obviously up there in the heat early in the year, the conditions, the ball is slippery. It's hard to handle. And there is going to be the odd error here and there. But you want him confident and backing himself. You don't want him going out there. And in the end, he throws the money ball over to Jesse Arthurs that wins him the game, really.
I think the beauty of Adam Reynolds, though, Tone, is he's at a point in his career where 9 times out of 10, he will make the right decision. Yeah. So if he puts in a short kick, you know he's seen something that was probably the right decision at the time. So, he hit the post. As you said, Hindy, that one that hit the post last night didn't come off, but... Even the deflection could have resulted in a try.
Yeah.
I think he's at that point where he's been around long enough and he's such a smart footballer. I mean, you know better than anyone, JD. He's such a smart footballer that he will make the right call more often than not. As a coach, I imagine you just got to back that guy because, he's seeing things that you aren't necessarily seeing.
Yeah, and then you can have all the best plans in the world when you get out in the field. We could go into a game saying, oh, look at this edge, they're doing this, they're doing that. And they've spent all week working on that. So you get out on the field and now things are different and you want your players to be able to adapt and adjust to that. And sometimes a short kicking game is the best way to change up the way the team's defending. If they're up and they're rushing, early kicking behind them gets them to sit on their heels and then we can ball play a bit more. So, and Adam knows that better than anyone. He's probably one of the most experienced halves in the game now. So if he's kicking early, you're backing him to get it right 9 times out of 10.
All right, you mentioned him, but where are we sticking Payne Haas? I mean, Brandy in commentary last night was talking and said, I've seen a lot of great front rowers. Nobody could do what he did in terms of that last try where he ran like a back and before he did it with power.
He nearly scored one early in the game, doing the same sort of thing. But he's honestly a freak. Like you're used to seeing your front rowers that'll just get through their first 20 minutes and then they'll have a spell. He just keeps going. But the intensity he keeps going at, and there's also too, he's getting back on kicks. The opposition putting bombs up. He's getting back to help his fullback and his wingers and his centres cover a loose ball. I think he got on one last night from a crossfield kick, and he was the one that ended up getting the ball and running 5-10 metres to getting tackled. So he's the number one prop in the game at the moment. I think he has been for a couple of years, and he seems to be only getting better and better. He's looking full of confidence, and he's playing some outstanding footy.
The Broncos are about to go through a contract negotiation with Payne Haas because he's a November 1 guy, right? November 1 he enters the last year of his deal. We just seen Dylan Brown sign for $1.3 million a year. I wonder what Payne Haas is worth if he goes to market. I mean,
$6 million a year. Give him $6.
Well, front rowers,
1.4 easy.
He has to
front rowers are really well paid in the modern game, but he's an outlier in terms of even front rowers in terms of how good he is.
With all the talk of the cap going up over in the next deal, then and forecasting that he would easily be worth $1.4 million. You build your team around him. There's no point having good halves without good front rowers who can play big minutes and are hard to handle. And we were fortunate to beat Brisbane in 23 up there, and the one bloke who was missing was Payne Haas. And, that just meant you could go after Carrigan and go after Flegler. But when he's there, he's just constantly at you, and he's so hard to handle it. And you can handle him, but it takes 3-4 years to do it.
He's only 25, so it'll be 26, 27 when he comes off contract, whose next deal kicks in. He's going to get a monster deal.
What I like about him at the moment is Payne's always been an elite front rower. He's always had the attributes and played a way that he puts his numbers are up there with it. But as Hindy said, for me, he looks like he's really matured. And not only is he playing well, but he's influencing his teammates as well. And you can see that with the way he's playing and the moments that he's choosing to get himself on both sides of the ball. And that's a scary thing for anyone who's going to be playing against Brisbane.
They were better last
Yeah,
night,
they were.
but they're 0-3, and that's ultimately what coaches are judged on, wins and losses. So, they've just got to win some footy games, and the pressure will go away.
Well, obviously, I thought they were a much better side last night. A totally different side than what we've seen the first 2 weeks. They came out, looked like they had a spring in their step. Yeah, their last plays probably weren't the best. They were camped down the Broncos' end for a while and didn't obviously get any points from that. But they seemed to be a little bit more energetic.
Yeah.
But mind you, the Broncos did an outstanding job keeping Dearden and Drinkwater, away from the ball and not giving them too many metres. But it was an improvement, and I think Toddy Payton and the Cowboys fans can take a fair bit out of that game from last night.
Yeah, there's definitely some green shoots in there, wasn't it? And I liken it to Trent's post-match press conference after round one. That he saw some things in there that he liked, and that set up their week for an awesome performance the following week. And I'm sure Toddy's message will be that was a much improved performance. And I think everyone was talking about the Cowboys needed the win. I didn't see that. I think they needed a performance that gave them something to get excited about for the following week, because their first 2 rounds, there was nothing in their performance that would have got them excited about. But I think there was enough in that. Brisbane are a very tough team to play against, especially at Suncorp. So I think they'll get some joy out of that. They'll get some things that they are happy with. And, Jace was a massive difference for him, Taumalolo, coming off the back fence. And he's only going to get better over the next few weeks as he gets match fitness. And that's going to help the boys around him.
Next 3 weeks, they go Canberra, Penrith, South with Latrell back. So
Easy.
doesn't get any easier for him.
Wow. That kid, Jason Purdue, he can run.
He's a good player. He's a very good player.
He can run, but I think he was in 6 and 7s in defence, though. I think he worked on his defence a bit, and
he's actually a half. I think
both their edges are, aren't they? They're not sure what
coming
feel
in,
like
staying
they don't
out.
know what they're doing. Yeah, they're a bit indecisive, and there's nothing worse being an edge defender and being indecisive. When you're second guessing what you're doing, then you're under a lot of pressure.
Broncos 26, Cowboys 16. Next, Brandon Smith off to the Rabbits. Nation Hindmarsh, Jason Demetriou, Brent Read Tony Squires with you on a Saturday afternoon. All right, it's official. Brandon Smith will be heading from the Roosters to the Bunnies. 2-year deal from 2026. Brent Read, any chance she'll go the back end of this year?
I wouldn't rule it out, Tone. Probably depends on how the two sides are placed. If the Roosters are in finals contention, I'd imagine they probably want to keep Brandon around just because he's a good footballer and he adds depth to their squad. And if Souths are out of finals contention, I don't know why you would bother chasing Brandon and bringing him over, because if you can't make the finals, then you might as well let the Roosters pay the rest of his contract. So I think it depends on where those two sides are placed later in the year. Remember, he's not due back from injury till June, July or so there's a bit of water to pass under the bridge. But it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up... If South stay in finals contention and the Roosters drift out, then it makes sense to probably get him over early.
You wrote that the Roosters may be a little bit unhappy with the flirting that was going on before the signing between Brandon and the Bunnies.
Well, I mean, he was already sort of on the outer there. They'd already told him he could leave, and there wouldn't be a contract for him. So, I mean, we all know the history between those two clubs. They hate each other. It's pretty common knowledge, and the sort of power brokers at those clubs don't exactly admire each other's clubs. They get on, Nick Pappas and Nick Politis get on well. They're not enemies, but in terms of their view of the others' clubs, they're not big fans of them. So I can't imagine Nick Politis would have been overly happy with Brandon speaking so glowingly of South and Wayne Bennett during that period before the signing.
JD, you've been there.
I can't imagine it.
Yeah, I don't imagine he'd be very happy at all. But you're not gonna shoot yourself, are you? If you still need him and he's going to bring value to the team. The other thing is, the longer it goes, the less likely they will release him, because you're not going to save much in the cap. If it's a cap and you want to get the money in the cap, then you'll be looking at making that in the next 6 weeks, I reckon. And if you're going to wait till July, then there's only like 2-3 months left of his contract. It's going to do next to nothing in terms of your cap.
I think he's on around 900. So if he went with 3 months to go, the NRL season or the contracting season ends October 31. So you imagine if he went at the end of July, they'd save, what's that, a quarter of his contract, 200 grand or so. Whether that's worth doing, I don't know.
That's if South take on the rest of it.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
If they've got cap room to do it.
Or they want it, and it's all about forecasting as well, and how much you spend now to how that impacts the next couple of years. So there's a fair bit to play out there, but listening to Tedesco speak about Brandon and what he brings to the team, and listening to Robbo talk about him when the decision was made for him to go, I don't think they're in any rush to get rid of Brandon.
He's got plenty of offer still. So, but with Reedy, if they do start coming good, the Chooks, and they're looking like they could be, he'll add so much to that side.
Well, they'd be mad to let him go if that was the situation.
Yeah.
Well, if he wants to go, he'll just keep getting on the chat and have
On the
a bit more to
podcast.
say, and he might quickly find get what he wants.
Yeah.
There were such high hopes for him when he went to the Roosters, quite obviously. Great player, as we all know. Why is there a belief that one club over another is a better fit for a player?
Oh, I think I don't know. I only stayed at one club, but it obviously comes down to coaching. And everyone knows what Wayne's like as a coach. You know, he has that ability to take probably that rough-edged player and craft him and mould him into a player that's going to be a little bit more consistent. And he's come from Cheese came from the Storm system, where it was an outstanding system to be involved in. You got a fearless coach in Craig Bellamy, who obviously understands players. He knows what he wants out of the player. The players know what to expect from their coach, and which is I thought was going to be quite similar for him when he came to the Chooks. But obviously it hasn't worked out as well. But going from someone like Trent Robbo to a Bennett is not a bad thing, and he just has that knack of creating players.
He strikes me as the sort of player Wayne's always loved. You know, those guys with a bit of cheek and, you know, a bit like Alfie. Wayne always loved Alfie and Kevy, and Brendan's got a bit of that cheek about him as well. You know, he can take the mickey and have a laugh, and he'll take the mickey out of Wayne. And Wayne's always seemed to really have an affinity for those. I mean, Wayne chased him when he was at the Dolphins.
Yeah. But the respect's there, I think.
Yeah, the respect's definitely.
Well, I think Craig loves that about him as well. He has several characters like that, doesn't he? It's why Munster's probably stayed there as long as he has. So I think what Wayne does well is he'll identify what he likes about Cheese, and he'll be encouraging him to go out and be that player. And I think the difference when he left Melbourne, he was never a starting 9 when he was at Melbourne. He was always that guy who came off the bench at 9 or 13, whether Cameron Smith or Harry Grant was there, and then he became the starting 9. And I've seen over when he's played for New Zealand and he started at 9, he's still an elite level player, but you don't see the best impact that he has when he comes off the bench.
Do you think he's a 14?
I think he is.
So do I.
He is, yeah.
Everyone's talking about him being 9 or a 13, a starting 9 or a 13, but I think his best position's coming off the bench, number 14.
I reckon there's a myriad of reasons why it hasn't worked at the Roosters. And you know, injuries have played a part. He had some issues that were going on in his life that he needed to sort out. You know, all that sort of stuff contributed to it not working at the Roosters. And I just think they decided it's not going to work. We need to go in our separate directions. And, you know, he's landed on his feet, and I think it's going to be a great outcome for him.
The other thing is when you come to Sydney, everyone knows what you're doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what you're doing.
Yep.
No one knows what's going on in Melbourne in terms of what the players are doing in their own time. But in Sydney, everything's heightened and everyone gets to talk about everyone's business, and that makes it slightly different when you leave Melbourne and come to Sydney.
So, and there are players, I guess, who thrive on that and others who don't want a bar of it.
It's just different, you know. It's just more distractions in Sydney than there is in Melbourne. In Melbourne, you can get on with doing your own thing and then focus on your footy when you're at trade. And in Sydney, it's a bit more spotlight on every player, and everything you say or you do outside of footy is picked up from someone or somewhere. And
Brandon's the sort of guy who's easily distracted too, I suspect. You know, he's got a very short attention span.
I tell you what about Brandon. I was at the Cows when Brandon was playing under 20s, and he was a guy who, you know, he'd turn up in pre-season and you could tell he's absolutely loved his off-season, but within 4 weeks he's the best trainer at the club. He trains hard, he works hard, and he's had a great career, and it'd be good to see him get back to that form that we know he's capable of. And I think the makeup of the South Sydney side really suits that. It does. They need someone who can play that 13 and 9, complement Mamazelis as well, who I think starting to find his feet in first grade as well. We saw that last week. And Brandon will actually add to what Pete can bring to the team as well.
Is there a thing with players like that, with coaching? I mean, part of it is what you know, coaching them as players, but there is a parenting component, isn't there?
Yes, there is. Yeah, that's more than the technical coaching, I suppose. But I think for every coach, you want your players to understand that everything they do has an impact on the team, and especially in Sydney, you know. So make sure that what you say or what you do doesn't bring a distraction to the group, because NRL's so hard now. You need to be focused every game to get your job done and to play the best level you can. And if you've got things going on outside of footy that just distract you slightly, then that's going to have an impact on your performance.
I think to be fair to Robbo, I think he's done his best with Brandon, but it just, as I said, it just hasn't worked out for. Like Robbo's, we talk about Wayne and Craig and their ability to put their arm around a player or get the best out of players. I think Robbo's shown that he does that as well over time. But in this case, it just hasn't worked. I don't think that's shouldn't be seen as a reflection on Robbo as against Wayne or Craig, right? I think Robbo's shown over the years that in terms of footballers, he can get the best out of them and forge relationships with them. But I don't know, for some reason, this one just hasn't. As I said, I think it's more injuries and other issues that have contributed to this rather than a reflection on Robbo in any way.
I also think the form of Connor Watson has had an impact. Let's not forget he was playing Origin last year, and his form and the development of him as a 9 off an impact player has probably led to him, thinking that, okay, do we need to keep Brandon beyond this year and then get a traditional hard running, hard defending 9 that complements Connor a bit more, because Connor and Brandon are very similar in how they play the game. So, Reece will probably complement what Connor does as well. So I think there's a footy aspect to it as well.
All right, there you have it. This is the Saturday Scrum. We're doing it for Thirsty Camel. Camel on down to Thirsty Camel Bottle Shops for unseriously good deals. Drink responsibly. Lovely to have your company heading towards kickoff at 3 o'clock. The Sharkies taking on the Rabbitohs. My name's Tony Squires with Nathan Hindmarsh, Jason Demetriou, and of course Brent Read is with us as well. The Broncos 26 over the Cowboys 16, the Warriors 14, the Roosters 6, and the Storm 30. Over the Panthers 24. Just before the break, we did have the quiz, which is all written AI. Decided to give somebody else the responsibility. It was awesome. Awesome. Really, what if, I asked you, Jason, whether in fact it was, something that could be or is used in the game. And you said down the track, probably. Reedy, what have you discovered?
I just put it into ChatGPT, Tone, how tactics for Cronulla to beat South Sydney later today, and it's come up with a masterful game plan, actually.
Let's hear it.
Basically, it's all about, it's got several areas: defensive strategies, tactical approach, ruck control, attacking strategies, edge exploitation, kicking games, Nico Hines' running game. It's gone into quite some detail. Wow. So,
who do they exploit?
Well, they said target, obviously, Jai Gray under the high ball. He's quite short, Jai Gray. Got to be very careful of Cody Walker. Got his line speed on Cody Walker and watch his inside supports. It's
and what
quite
about,
interesting.
What about just before they run out? Is there a final word?
There is actually a final message to the team. Do you want to read it to you?
Yes. Please.
Today we defend our home turf with pride and determination, execute our game plan with precision, support each other relentlessly, and seize every opportunity. Let's show the Rabbitohs what it means to face the Sharks at Shark Stadium. That's got the hair on the back of your neck.
I'm ready to go.
So
anyway,
good.
so JD, this might be,
Yeah.
No need for coaches anymore.
No.
Well, so this segment is redundant.
Coach's Corner with Jason Demetriou.
Coach's Corner, indeed. There's just, look, a couple of things I want to pick your brain on, and I'm sure you've been following. I'm interested. The Dragons at the moment, as a fan, sometimes it seems that we can go from everything's okay to catastrophe quite quickly. And the fans are really intense about it all. At the moment, let's work through a couple of things. Flano, the idea that after the 2 losses, that the Lachlan Ilias thing, what did you make of that, kind of calling out that performance? Or was he trying to say that press conference that he didn't want to be quoted about, that him having a bad game?
It's hard to say because he left it quite open, didn't he, in terms of interpretation. But, the way it's been taken was that's a bit of a dig at Lockie. And, it's difficult. Like, the press conferences after games are by far the worst part of your week, especially after a loss.
Yep.
Because you're emotional, your team's emotional, and generally a lot of how you think straight after a game, when you go back and you watch the game, sometimes that changes because you're seeing the game clearer, you take the emotion out of it. So that's why a lot of times you don't want to say too much in a press conference after a game until you've been able to digest the performance as a whole. The danger when you isolate one individual is that overlooks other individuals, and that can create problems in the changing room as well if one person's sort of singled out and other people that haven't had a good game aren't singled out. So that's another reason why coaches won't do that. And ultimately, my theory is we win together, we lose together, we improve together. And, every time there's a loss, then you got to own some of that responsibility as well. And that's the main reason why I wouldn't isolate or, single out individual players.
But then after a presser, and you go and see it, and it's all, what you think it's going to be. but you'll still go to that player and question his game, privately though, won't you?
Oh, without doubt.
Yeah.
Without
Yeah.
doubt. It's one of those
But
things.
also to the players around, he would know that as well, that you've gone to that player and said this and this, this and this. You need to, pull your finger out, or you need to do this a little bit better.
Yeah, and I think, when the journalist was asking the question, let's not forget the Dragons led 24-12
Yeah.
and had done pretty much everything right to get in the position to finish the game off. And there's that last section of the game, but there's other things during the first 60 minutes that put you in a position to lose a game as well. And when you single out one person, you're pretty much isolating just that part of the game. I mean, I remember Pete Mamazella's try right under the sticks, straight through Gutherson.
Yep.
Which was a poor try to concede for someone of his standing and as a captain of the club. So again, that's why it's really hard just to identify one person when there's so many individuals that will make mistakes during the game. And sometimes it might be you in terms of how you made an interchange or who you didn't. They didn't carry an outside back on the bench. So Damien Cook ended up having to go in the centres. How did that impact the flow of the game in the final minutes? There's all those things that come into play, and it makes the week tougher if you're going to make it public. For me, keep everything in-house. Have those tough conversations together. Players got fragile egos.
I was going to say,
that's the thing, though. Sorry,
you go.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? It's changed a lot, hasn't it?
Oh, immensely. Yeah.
Because you got put on show by the coach in a press conference back, 10, 15 years ago. You sucked that up and you went, well, you know what? I'll prove you wrong, and I'll come out and play a better game next week, and I'll work on those deficiencies within my game. But now you got to worry about.
I'm not sure Lockie Ilias was overly offended by it. I think Lockie knew he hadn't finished
and
that game off.
You know that yourself. So if someone said it publicly to me, okay, you're right. I'll fix that. I think we've created a.
I don't think Flano. It was the journalist who singled Lockie out because Flano didn't go in there with the mindset I'm gonna.
No, not at
I'm
all.
sure he didn't. But what happened? He got asked a question specifically about Lockie Ilias, and he didn't answer it well. And I think he sort of was half trying to have a joke, but it sort of got lost in the translation a bit. So, he's obviously acknowledged he could have handled it better because he rang Lockie and apologised for it. But my understanding is, Braith's obviously his manager, and we were on 360 on Monday night, and talking to Braith, Braith acknowledged that Lockie knew he didn't have the greatest game and should have finished it off better. It just didn't need to be probably highlighted the way it was by Flano. And I don't think Flano went in there with any intention to do that. It's just the way he handled that question or his reaction to the question, it just came out that way.
And that's the thing these days, though, isn't it? There's so much hype around any little word you say or any way you phrase something, and it just gets picked apart. And that's why the coaches don't like going into press conferences after games, because we're a week since that game and we're still sitting here talking about it. And that's the side that's not fair on Lockie, because everybody's still talking about Lockie's performance and whether he was or he wasn't. That's the conversation that Lockie's got to put away for the rest of the week. But again, and Lockie's a player who's come back from a badly broken leg.
Yeah.
And he hasn't had a full preseason because of coming back from that injury, and he's at a new club. So again, all those little things make you think, it's a bit unfair. But again, I don't think Flano deliberately went in there, as you said, Reedy, to go, I'm going to give it to Lockie. And Lockie wouldn't have taken it like that. No. He's the most level-headed kid there is. And Lockie, unfortunately, because of Adam leaving for Brisbane, and Lockie, he's had unfair scrutiny since the day he put on a first-grade jersey. That's a fact. And no one will convince me otherwise of that. And every time he doesn't hit a standard that's expected, then that's unfortunately the questions that the journalists want to talk about. But in his first 40, 45 games as an NRL player, he was around 60, 65% win rate. Played in prelim final and led the NRL after 12 rounds in 2023. So he knows how to play and he knows how to win. Kicked a winning field goal against Manly in extra time. He'll bear fruit as the season goes on. He's coming off a major injury. The St George fans, I have no doubt by the end of the year, will be singing Lockie's praises.
Love that. All right, what about Christian Tuipulotu and his post-try celebrations, the show me the money, those kinds of things, sometimes seemingly in an inappropriate time, i.e. when it's the first try, when they're still 3 tries behind. Now, Flano has said he won't be doing that anymore. I guess there's two parts to that. Should we be stopping people who are flamboyant just doing something that's their personality? Should we be doing that? And if you are, should you just do it in the dressing room or inside the 4 walls rather than saying, I'm going to put a stop to that?
Oh, you looking at me. Oh, look,
I remember you loved the celebration too.
I wasn't a big celebrator for scoring a try. Anyone scoring a try was it's a handshake. But
Were you involved in the bomb throwing?
No, God, no, that wasn't me.
Fletch
that
was.
was that big-headed idiot.
Fletch and Ryan Girdler.
Yeah, but that was. This is a tricky one, isn't it? Because you want players to be themselves. That's what we talk about all the time. Players being themselves, enjoying the game, being them. So for him, for Tuipulotu to be doing what he was doing, as a spectator, as a fan of the game watching, I think it's hilarious. I love it. No matter what the scoreline is, he's doing probably. But as a teammate, you're down by 12 or whatever, 14 points, and you're doing the cash and all that sort of stuff. Probably not the best time to be doing it. 24-12 up. Thinking the game's in the bag, not a bad. You could probably get away with it doing it then.
Yep.
So, but for me, it's if I was a member of that side, if we're up by 50 with a minute to go,
Go for it.
Go for it. Do your best. But as a fan watching it, I don't want to see that taken away from his game.
It's interesting though, isn't it? I think if the Dragons were 2-0 and not 0-2, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. The fact that they've lost both games is probably why it's heightened. And also, over the last few years, we've had Try July, haven't we?
Yeah.
So we've encouraged these type of celebrations. We've encouraged players to engage with the fans and celebrate and do different things. And then when it does happen, when it's not Try July, we're like, well, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing that. And
we get stuck into the teams who don't celebrate when we're, having those days or those weekends.
Yeah, well, the Tigers got the claws out, and everybody seems to be loving that.
I don't have a great problem with that. Hey, Tone, bit of news has just broken. George Foreman has passed away.
Oh, not really?
Former heavyweight champion, one of the great boxers the world's seen. George Foreman's passed away, so a bit of a sad story.
Oh, that is sad. He's
Sad
a lovely
news,
man.
huh?
I've interviewed George Foreman. Yeah, and we also had from the George Foreman grill. He cooked some steaks
that's right.
as
That was
well.
that was meant to be Hulk Hogan's grill. Apparently,
Was it really?
Yes, but he had to go pick his kids up from school, missed the call. So they go,
True story.
this is a legit story. I used to watch Meet the Hogans or whatever the show was, and he tells that story. So he was picking the kids up from school, which his wife was supposed to be doing that day. Wow. She got caught up doing something else. So he had to go pick the kids up, missed the phone call. George Foreman got the grill, made trillions, and I think Hulk Hogan ended up getting a blender, which didn't do as good as the grill. True story.
George Foreman.
story.
George's kids, most of them were named George.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah.
Even a couple of the girls. Love it. That is sad. George Foreman, one of the great heavyweight boxers of all time, has passed away. This is the Saturday Scrum. Triple M rocking the footy on a Saturday afternoon. The Newtown Jets 14 leading South Sydney 4. Just a couple of minutes to play in the first half. You've pulled on the Jets jersey, JT, in your time?
yeah, the Mighty Blue Bags, yep. Back in 1997, 98 was one of those years, yeah. Yeah, such a historic club.
Yeah.
I'm a printer by trade, and Terry Rowney, who's been heavily involved in, I think he's the owner of the Newtown now, and he was the major sponsor at the time. So I had a few options to clubs to go to, but I went there so I could get me time off work so I could go to training. And yeah, Terry loves it. He's been great for that Newtown club. He's kept the Blue Bags alive for so many years, and get down to Henson Park. It's a great atmosphere down there.
It's so good to see that blue jersey running around. All right, the Warriors 14, the Roosters 6. It wasn't a game that reached any great heights, but certainly the intensity, and it's a game I guess, Heine, you love, don't you? A bit of a close game, just blokes just bashing into each other.
I do enjoy a close game.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that too, I do enjoy seeing a side get walloped by 50. So,
Of course.
but
Except when it's Parramatta, of course.
Yeah, thank you, Reedy. Yeah, no, but I thought, it was a reasonably low scoring game, but it was, I think, what we expected over there in New Zealand. Look, the Chooks coming off a decent win the week before, an outstanding win the week before, considering the circumstances. And the Warriors, look, they're going to be there. I reckon they're going to be thereabouts. I don't mind their halves pairing at the moment. You got Aaron Clark, who I think's been an outstanding pickup for him. Like he just adds that bit of punch that I think the Warriors were missing a little bit of aggression and all that sort of stuff. Can beat one or two and then get a quick play of the ball. So, look, I think it was a good win by the Warriors. A gutsy, tough game that was drawn out, which could have gone either way, I think. And it was one of those games I think the Warriors, particularly Coach Webster, would like to see them win. You know,
the Roosters defended so well for like 60 minutes because I think the Warriors had most of the territory, didn't they? I mean, the Roosters were constantly coming almost off their own line, and it looked like they were going to hold on. It just looked like the Warriors were sort of running out of ideas to break them down. And then obviously Chanel Harris-Tavita comes up with that kick and plucks the ball out the air, and the game sort of changed dramatically then. But yeah, it's just a real in the trenches, drag them out, scrap that one.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the root.
Teddy's try saving that slide under tackle. We're talking before about Reece Walsh going in with the shoulder, but he managing to go under and somehow get himself under the ball was spectacular.
So if he just shoulder charges him and hits him in the head and he drops a ball, are we all right with that?
Well, no, we did say avoid contact with the head. Yeah, so there's a little bit different.
Yeah.
A little bit
He's had a great start to the year, though, James Tedesco. I mean, he's been...
Yeah.
It looks fresh.
And for a side that needs his leadership more than ever, I reckon his leadership through the first 3 games has been outstanding for the Roosters.
2018 since the Warriors beat the Roosters. Wow. So it's been a dry spell for
the centre for the Warriors, Leotawa. On that right edge there. Yeah, he scored a great try last week by hitting a good hole and backed it up again this week with a double.
When teams go over to New Zealand, the conditions are very different to what you'll play in Australia, and it's a lot dewier, a lot slipperier on the ground. And for me, the Roosters' last tackle options and their completion rate just didn't give them a chance to get a strong hold of the game. I think they led the line breaks 5-3, tackle bust 40-30. You know, they actually created a lot of chances, but they just didn't go on with it, and they just kept inviting the Warriors back down their end. And the Warriors will get better when their halves get better at attacking inside that 10-metre area on the try line. It's very different to attacking everywhere else up the field, and they just a little bit rushed at times. And when they did that and they held that defensive line, and they got the ball to Leotawa, and wow, tackling him is an absolute. I think it's is it the interchange player on the bench as well who had an outstanding
the
game.
forward.
Yeah,
he was great, wasn't he?
It's Sala finishes. Yeah, Halasima.
Yep.
Halasima.
Yeah.
They couldn't tackle him. He was an absolute wrecking ball. And there's a guy called Jacob Laban as well, who's 18th man, who's got big raps on him as well. So there's some real green shoots, and it's exciting times for the Warriors fans.
Yeah. For the commentators who hope that Mark Nawanga-Nituwazi would end up in New South Wales Cup and his pronunciation would become somebody else's problem, they've got another thing coming because he's got NRL written all over him, hasn't he? Another good game. I mean, there's obviously some flaws and things he's got to work on, but he's big body, and each week he comes up with something pretty good.
And he's got that combination going with Tupou, hasn't he, on that wing? And they look as though they're already in sync, right? They look threatening every time they get their hands on the ball, and he's got a bit of X factor about it. Even that little kicky
chip and chase,
where
He just catches it.
just couldn't get it at the first grab.
Yeah, and he probably deserved to score from that play, right? Because it was a stroke of genius. But he's a talent. He's an unbelievable talent.
I think the Warriors must have done a bit of homework on him, because the week before with that right hand offload behind the defensive line, picking up his winger, they shut that down. He did try it a couple of times with no success, but he's definitely become a handful. He's come on a lot quicker than I thought he would come on. You know, he's obviously been playing the contact sport for a long time, but Sevens rugby to NRL is a big difference. So, but he's doing all right.
Yeah, no. Well, he plays from Wallabies as well. He is a good player.
I love a good centre battle too.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was Leotawa versus Nawanga-Nituwazi. Is that right?
Yeah.
Nawanga-Nituwazi. Is that right?
Mark.
No, I want to get good at it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
When I'm calling it live, it's I try to say his name and I say it really slowly so I get the pronunciation right, or try to get it right, and I've got to speed that up a bit.
Yeah, well, you go Nawanga-Nituwazi. I do like it. What about the Roosters, where they are? I mean, after that first round, and it's been well documented how much they've lost in terms of experience and players. So many people had written them off after round one. Where have you got them now? Where are you readjusting after these 3 rounds?
I'm not riding them off. No way. Yeah. I think if they can be 50-50 win-loss record by the time they get Sam Walker back and potentially Brandon Smith and stay relatively healthy in that time, I think they're going to have a big back end of the year. I like the way they play. Nafahu White, again, was outstanding last night. Spencer Leniu as well was on fire. Like they're two different shaped bodies, but they just offer footwork and punch, and they're hard to get a handle on. And you know, they lost Connor Watson at just before half time as well, which really affected the way they attack. And like we said, I reckon they bombed 3 tries they left out there. So they won't be too disheartened. It's actually a high-quality game of footy, very physical, which you expect over there in New Zealand. So I don't think Trent will be too disheartened, but they need to just make sure they ice those games where they can so that they can be in and around the hunt by the time those key players come back.
Yeah, well, you'd put a red line through them a couple of weeks ago, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
But they've shown a bit more defensive resilience the last couple of weeks. Big game this week, though, Tone, for them. It's a Dave Fafita Cup. They're up against the Gold Coast Titans, and we all know Dave Fafita backflipped on them, didn't he? So looking forward to that. Be a few yarns this week about the backflip, won't there? We'll be rolling those ones out, don't worry.
Love it.
Rehashing it all. We love it.
Yeah.
Nathan Hindmarsh, Jason Demetriou, Brent Read Tony Squires with you on this Saturday Arvo. We were talking before about injuries, Reedy. We didn't mention, now with Victor Radley, he came off for the HIA, but all good came back on because there's always concern with Victor, isn't there? Because he does have a history. I saw him in at Fox during the week and he was, everything's fine and all good. But there is there a technique thing? What's going on?
Well, to be fair, Tone, I'm probably not the technical expert. I mean, Jody's probably better at that than Heine than me. But, I mean, obviously he's had a few head knocks, and the good news was the other night he passed his HIA and came back into the game. He didn't have an issue after that. So he's had some issues over the years, and that was one where he probably got his technique wrong. He got his head in the wrong spot, and he got a knock as a result of it. But, obviously, as I said, he cleared the HIA and came back in the game.
Do we know when enough's enough? Like, is it it's obviously tests, but who decides when? I know it's not going to be a while for Victor, but when's too many?
Well, I think the Roosters have been pretty good at that in recent years. We saw Boyd, Jake Friend, Luke Keary had a few, obviously, before he went to France. So, as a club, they've been pretty diligent around that sort of thing. So, I'm sure they'll know when's enough, but obviously, every time he gets a head knock now, there's a concern around it. Every time he has to go off for a HIA, I think everyone sort of is on the edge of their seat to see whether he returns, right? So, but that club, they've been, Robbo and Nick and those guys, they're pretty good around that area.
They've been awesome. Yeah, really good. Player welfare at forefront, no doubt.
Yep.
I just want another pick your brain again on match review element. Now, the hip drop that wasn't a hip drop, Cameron Munster.
Yep.
Just clear as day.
Yeah, I mean, it's not your traditional hip drop action, which we see when a player's standing and a player comes in and changes his hips and drops the weight on the back of the leg. He's trying to make the tackle from behind and he's gone up over his shoulder. He actually fell off the tackle, which is why he swung right the way he did, and he landed clean on the ground before the foot was trapped in there. And I think that's why you saw Martin be able to play on, because he didn't have the full weight land on the back of his leg. And the reality is sometimes in games you're going to end up in awkward positions. We saw a very similar one in the Warriors Roosters game with Tuapiki. Again, Nwanga Nick Tawazi tried to flip him around, and that swung him around. He ended up landing in that position, and that's going to happen in your game. It's not always going to be clean. So, yeah, there's a hip drop action that we need to get out of the game, and that's crept in, but I don't see too many of them that are the traditional ones now.
JD, I assume this might seem like a really stupid question, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I assume for it to be a hip drop, he's actually got to land on the bloke's leg, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that shouldn't have even been penalised. I think he got penalised over it from memory.
Yeah, there's a bit of, it's like anything, when the crusher tackle got outlawed, and anyone who got any faint bit of pressure on their neck just stays down, and anyone who gets a bit of pressure on his ankle. But in saying that, to be fair to Liam Martin, he did end up in his foot was bent fair way, so I can understand why he went down there, and referee made the decision a penalty, but it was playing.
It was good fun watching those two blokes go at it the other night. They don't like each other.
Two absolute competitors just going at it.
Not sure exactly how satisfying it is, but you win the grand final rematch. It's a good thing for Storm. They're 30 over the Panthers, 24. It was an interesting game of rugby league, this one. They started brilliantly, the Storm, and then kind of plateaued, you'd have to say. 8 minutes, though, was all that Nathan Cleary lasted before he had to go off with the Category 1. It was just a weird collision with Jerome Hughes.
Yeah, it was the way he landed. Obviously, landed on the side of his head. Nathan, you could tell straight away there was something wrong with him. I think initially people thought it might have been his shoulder again, but then when he sort of stayed down, he quickly realised he copped a head knock, and obviously that means the 11-day stand down comes into effect for him. He'll miss next week. South Sydney, I think they got next week on Thursday, so he missed that game and be back the week after. And I tell you what, though, I thought Jack Cole played really well. Yeah. While Nathan was off the field, I thought he took control of that team and led them around. I thought he played really well, Jack Cole, in Nathan's absence.
Plays Talangi showed some good signs.
Yeah, he was good too. Yeah.
And Thomas Jenkins wasn't bad either, filling in for Dylan Edwards at fullback. So they always find somebody.
Yeah.
At Penrith.
Yeah.
But they did concede 30 points again.
Yes.
And it's a worry going into next week with no Edwards, no Cleary.
Yeah.
Big losses.
Who was it? What do you the Storm's performance as well? I know they lost a couple as well, but you think with what Penrith didn't have in that side, Cleary going out, no Edwards at fullback, bit of a reshuffle. I thought the Storm would have been a little bit disappointed. Yeah, they got the 2 points, but just I thought they would have been. I would put the sword to them and really gave it to them, but they didn't. So I think I'd be more disappointed in winning that rather than being Penrith and losing that.
It's been the case for the first 2 games they've played, haven't they? Blew Parramatta off the park, and then we just didn't go on with it in the second half, and again started great down there. But to be fair, they've had a lot of their players didn't trial, or their main players had round 1, then they had a bye, so they're just not quite getting that consistency in their performance. But a lot of credit to Penrith because they kept finding ways. Yo was outstanding.
Yeah.
As a leadership role in terms of when Cleary ran off, he just got his hands on the ball, and that helped the young halves be able to free them up a little bit. But yeah, I always felt like Melbourne were going to win the game. I never felt like they were in any danger of losing it. But yeah, I think every time they needed to, they put the foot down. But they're still striving for that consistency, I think.
I think they also finished that game with their entire right side sort of rebuilt. I think Ellie Cattell was in the centres. Grant Anderson left the field, came back on with his knee heavily strapped. And Jerome had the broken hand but played on. So I think sort of you can take that into account as well. But, I mean, obviously they just conceded too many points against, as you said, a side that was out without Nathan Cleary, no Dylan Edwards. It's almost like they started too well. Sometimes we talk about teams starting too well.
Relaxed.
Right?
Yeah. That does happen. But you look at the Penrith side, I thought Lindsay Smith, as soon as Cleary went off, and look, we thought they'd lose a bit without Fisher Harris there. He's obviously gone to the Warriors, but I thought Lindsay Smith the last couple of starts has been absolutely outstanding, and he can ball play as well as just take it up the gut. So I thought he was impressive, and Liam Henry too, coming off the bench, he just jammed him right up in him as well. So yeah, a couple of good performances there from the Penrith boys.
Big Nelson Asafa-Solomona came back and managed to take somebody up pretty early. Sadly, it was one of his own team, Nick Meaney.
He's become a specialist at that. He cleaned up Munster last year, wasn't he? He cleaned up.
Yeah. We mentioned the non-hip drop, but you were talking about, loving watching a centre battle, but watching a battle between Cam Munster and Liam Martin was also pretty intense.
It was outstanding, wasn't it? Sets up a exciting origin battle as well, doesn't it? So
I thought they made up. They did a story last year before the grand final.
Well, Liam Martin's mother said you've got to apologise.
Then they've just ripped into each other. And I can't believe he got penalised, Cam Munster, at the end of that game, though, for
push and shove.
He gave him a bit of a nudge.
Yeah.
And they penalised him
a bit
for
soft too. Yeah.
I thought it was good as gold.
But
no
it could have started a melee. It could have started something.
But it was great watching those blokes.
Dangerous melees.
Oh, aren't they? They're vicious.
They just rub each other the wrong way.
They do. I love it. Yeah. Look, sadly, we're going to leave you in just a moment. Well, you're going to leave us, JT. But before you do, I saw a story today. Jason Taylor and Toby Sexton talking about nerds being, rugby league nerds, and going through the attacking game plan. And JT apparently has got his little toy soldiers and put him in the right spot. You were kind of a nerd in that way.
I'm a nerd in how much footy I watch and how much I love it, but I'm not like I don't have little men everywhere and beside me the bedside table, doing tactics and something like that. But yeah, you have to be when you're coaching. You have to be a nerd of the game. You have to. I say that with young halves as well. They need to watch more footy. Young guys these days, they don't watch anywhere near enough footy. I mean, Hindy could probably attest to it when he was coming through. You just watch a lot of footy, don't you? You're always watching it.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
So is like Toby Sexton being there with JT going through attacking manoeuvres? Is that the usual way for your attacking coach to have kind of the halfback, quarterback, the guy who's directing the team around with him?
Yeah, for sure. You need to have that connection with your spine because all your attack comes off them. So he'll spend a lot of time with his 9, with Reed Money, with his half, and sit down and have a lot of one-on-one conversations or group conversations with that spine group and. That's probably where he gets to get his real detail across. It's really hard to get it across to the whole team in a video setting, but he can get it across in those one-on-one or those small group situations.
And how difficult it is to get the attacking, how to unlock what is now the defensive systems that are all over the place. We've seen plenty of points scored in the early part of the season, but how difficult is it to unlock those systems?
Yeah, I mean, it's the challenge is understanding how you play and how that can be adapted depending on, it doesn't matter who's you're playing against, any type of defensive system, and to be able to have players that can in game. I go back to the grand final when Brisbane beat Penrith. Beat Brisbane, and they were 16 down with 20 to go, and Jack Cogger comes on the field, and Nathan Cleary completely changes how he plays and becomes a running six, and Jack Cole comes on the ball, and in that moment, under the most highest amount of pressure, they're able to quickly adapt and change. And in any attacking team, that's what you want your team to be able to do. You want them to be able to adjust in game while also being true to how they attack. So, there's some examples of some great teams that do it really well. And Cody Walker's another player that adapts and can do that really well. So there's always a plan A, but be able to go to B, C, D if you need to is important with your attack.
Always great to have you in here. Thank you so much, JT. Millie Elliott joins us, though, for the next hour on the Saturday Scrum.
The Triple M Saturday Scrum, thanks to Thirsty Camel. Camel on down to Thirsty Camel Bottle Shop.